They can always update you on my master report.
Thank you.
Good.
So nice to see you.
Oh, so I'm taking all these out.
I'm not
So we're getting that, that's shift on YouTube.
What's there? Are you? This afternoon, like.
It was this morning, I looked at my calendar.
Okay.
And I was like,
More tomorrow?
Except
that one.
Live voice in Denver.
did you have a party?
Good.
Did you have a good time?
On a Friday.
Glad to hear.
That's all good.
Yes. I had to go down to Denver in between meetings today and come back.
I've got good news, I'll share this later.
Good news is always good.
Hey, Jeremy.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Good, I think, I don't know.
You're standing.
It's been a long week.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I thought you guys already know.
Yeah, we were waiting at you, like, and you didn't come. So I thought, Oh, okay.
Light
reading. Oh.
Some light reading.
How are you?
It's nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Hello, hey, how are you? Tell me your name again, Rebecca. Lisa, good to see you again.
You too, my friend.
Hello.
Oh, goodness.
Here you
Hello.
are. You're welcome. Here you are.
Turns out with you guys.
What you did,
I know.
that's the best parts.
You want some light reading?
I don't know where I did it.
Probably didn't need more light reading at the house.
You wanna
I
share?
opened
Would
the
you like your
windows
own?
and it gets too cold.
Okay.
Just
You
let me
like your
know.
own? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, me? You want your seat? You want your name tag?
You're welcome. Larissa? I bring one of my new neighbors from Florida.
So anyway, guess I just wanted to ask you about that. Would you like some bags?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Starbucks?
Thank you.
Go back.
So I just. Bring that to your. I just feel like that's something. Yeah, I think there's something we need.
Oh, very good.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you, Rebecca and George and everyone else. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks, Max.
Perfect, great. Sorry I can't be there in person. I have family obligations here in Leadville, so I'm joining via the remote Zoom. I'm glad we have this option.
Cool. Well, we're on time. You guys, you were good. You might strike one here. So my name is Jeremy Jones. I'm the Assistant Fire Chief for Creek Fire Authority. I'm also City Council for those that don't know that. So this is a full disclosure thing. I sit, he's hiding in my seat.
Here you go. Here.
See, hold it up, right?
So official.
I'm also I wrote the CWPP update. The week completed this year, we're going through approvals and she's been gracious to do some extra proofreading because we have some PDF conversion issues if you download, look at it. And we wanted to have kind of an open forum. Don't answer, have a seat, we'll get you all set. We wanted to kind of have an open forum to discuss wildland fire and the risks in the community. We've never done this, so this is either be a great thing or a failure. We're not sure. We're gonna figure it out. But we don't have a PowerPoint. We don't have a bunch of stuff to talk to you about. I think that was kind of ridiculous. We wanted to just have an open discussion of your concerns, your questions, and see how many we can answer tonight, how many we need to get you additional information on. And part of this conversation tonight is going to be around funding, because we want to mitigate, every brown tree in the community and every green tree that's in the wrong spot if we can. But right now, the average cost is about $4,000 an acre. And that's the average cost. It goes way up as it gets steep and hard to access, and nothing in our community is steep. I think we can all agree this is easy to walk, easy to hike. So we have a unique situation where it's really expensive to mitigate. It's hard to get the wood product out once the mitigation is done. So we have to look for solutions for that. Which is why Max is our new district ranger, and he's been amazing. And he wants to put work on the ground, but without community support, which I need everybody in the room and everybody in town to say, yeah, we want to put work on the ground. We support the Forest Service doing it and us. It's hard to move projects forward. A little bit of background on why it's hard to do that. I'm going to bring up Echo Hills, but the projects in Echo Hills were both supported and negatively supported by the same community. So you had people in the community that thought it was the best thing that could happen. And you had people in the community that were literally doing death threats to Forest Service employees because they were cutting the trees. So that caused a little bit of a shift with the Forest Service on how they do project planning. And one of the things with the Forest Service for project planning, and for us, is it starts with, do we have community support for the project? And if we do, how do we fund it? And then how do we charge forward with that project to make it happen? So that's why we're starting this conversation. In your pack, in your bags, it's we're a ready, set, go agency. Which essentially means three things: be ready to evacuate if you need to, even if you live in the middle of town. Marshall Fire approved that to a certain degree, which means have your medication list ready, have your medication ready, go have some clothes ready to go, know what you need to pack, know what is really important to fit in your car. Know your horse trailer with all your furniture is not important for your car, but we see that. And then always kind of be ready to go just in case. Who here, is everybody signed up for Lookout Alert? If not, we'll facilitate that. So we went from Code Red and Hyper Reach under the previous sheriff to Lookout Alert when we went to Jeffcom, and changed dispatch center. Which is nice for us because before we had two platforms that equally had like 30 people over here and 30 people over here, and these 30 didn't match these 30 or into the list. So if we didn't do alerts to both systems, we would only get half the community if we were winning. So that's why we say Lookout Alert is a single system. It's Clarissa can send that alert, Sheriff's Office can send an alert, Jeffcom can send that alert, and it's the same group, and we can geobox it all the way into Jefferson County. Because I think we can all agree that fires within our community aren't going to stop at County Line. Oh, wait, Jeffco, no, can't burn that tree. So we can design geoboxes that are a little bit bigger if we're doing evacuation alerts very quickly with that software. It's way more capable than HyperReach and Code Red ever was. So if you're not signed up, please sign up. Please sign up with your home phone, your cell phones, your kids' cell phones, whatever you want to do, and email addresses. You'll get an alert on all three platforms. So no matter where you're at, you get an alert. That's kind of my pitch for that. So beetle kill has probably been the biggest subject. Who here wants to hear about beetle kill?
I don't want to.
Exactly. So if we look at the drainage, we started seeing trees on this side of the drainage in 2017, 2018. That they had a little bit of beetle infestation of different kinds. But we didn't see a lot of it. Starting in 2020, the stuff that was really going south of us down towards the Pike and San Antonio, that forest started moving north. And for those that were most of you remember the late 90s, early 2000s, when the beetles were going through the lodgepole on that end of the county, and all of Summit County and all of Grand County, it turned to, brown, now gray. It's similar to that, only what we used to think was almost impervious was the ponderosa layer, because historically it's been really resilient. wasn't as resilient, and that's because we had drought. So we had a couple years of drought that we stressed those trees. At the same time that we have the insect that likes to eat those trees coming in the community, starts really strong in 2020 because they're moving north. We kind of set up the perfect storm. And then, so the bugs arrived and they go after the biggest, healthiest tree they can that they can get into. That's a healthy adjacent. You know, this big tree, it's doing pretty good, but maybe it's a little drought stress, but they turning that into a hotel. And then they go to the next biggest tree if they can. They continue that in pods for the life cycle, and they fly usually about August. And they move on to the next group of trees and so on and so forth, season after season. Well, we've compounded this. Yeah, go ahead.
How did they kill it?
So they kill it by breaking its ability to pass water between the bark and the core of the tree. They damage that layer so it can no longer transport nutrients. It can go down to the center, but it can't go up. So it starves the tree.
Did you say it just affects the ponderosis? Is that what it is?
No, it doesn't just affect ponderosa, but we'll talk about ponderosa first. We've also got some Doug fir issues. It says pretty prevalent right now, on top of mistletoe that we've had for probably a decade, especially on the Cub Creek side, coming out to Evergreen. Mistletoe's been a big deal in the Douglas fir, but we're seeing a little bit of moth activity in the Douglas fir, and we're also seeing beetle in Douglas fir. But the ponderosa is where we really started seeing the stuff you see here on the corridor. That's mostly ponderosa that we're seeing. It's because they're bigger trees, they're really prevalent, and all of a sudden they're not quite green, and they're a little bit brown, and then now, so we had the beetles come in, and we had some drought, and we also had some not as cold winters, and we had some warm springs. But we compounded all this starting in 2020. We continue to compound that until we sit here today. So this is the drawback to that. If we have a warm spring, which we've had several of, we go, wow, it's April. We've only seen one snowstorm. That could be a problem because we need a duration of cold in the wintertime to kill off the adults from the previous year. Because they have a limited amount of stores within their body to survive the winter, and then those run out and they die, and they usually don't make it into the next season. Well, the problem that we're seeing is we've got a percentage of those adults that are making it into the next season. So now we've got all the young ones that are now working to be adults. And we've got carryover. We've got a second group that should be last generation that's now also carrying over into the next season. So we're kind of compounding ourselves. So in your packet, in the information in your packet is says aerial detection survey. It looks like this. And that's the Forest Service aerial flyover. And these are clusters of beetle kill. And it goes 23, 24, and 25. Give you 3 years of data on this. And you can look at those and see if you go to 23, we were all here in 23 going, wow, that's a lot of beetle kill. That's really, because it was heavy in our area. But it was still moving north at that point. You go like 24, you go, okay, we're starting to get a lot larger cluster in Boulder County, for example, starting in 24, and our clusters were expanding. And then you look at the July of this year data that was processed in September of 2025, so just processed, all the clusters are much larger. And they're moving north. And if you look at Larimer County, go back to, this isn't just an us problem, this is an all of us problem. If you go back to 23 and look at Larimer County in 23, they were still moving north, but they were really happy with our neighborhood, so they weren't moving north very fast. So now we're into a little greater kill percentage within our community. The insects are spreading north still, which is good and bad for us. So they're still heavily in our neighborhood. They're pretty happy here. I think they're going to set up shop and buy homes, but they're starting to move towards the Wyoming line. So we know this is going to spread along. They used to call it the Goldilocks layer, which is the ponderosa pine, which goes to 8,500 feet. That's the threshold. So if you go to above Georgetown, you don't see ponderosa because the elevation prevents it. Ponderosa goes to 8,500. So we're sitting right in the middle of that, and if you go to the Front Range, it just gets worse. So Jefferson County has a very similar situation. If you drive I-70, you see Soda Creek as you go right before El Rancho, all those trees are now losing their leaves, losing all their needles. So those are about 2.5 years since infestation. Tree turns brown after the first year. It kills it. A year later, it turns brown. A year after that, the needles fall off. So when you start seeing just the dead standing trees, which of course we have quite a few over here, those are at least 2 years old. And so that's 2023, 2022. So the next thing we've got in your packet is what's killing them. So it says mountain pine beetle. You can put this in this video. Series of pictures, right? The mountain pine beetle field training. This is event that was put on. We did the site visit in Crooked County last week, and the site visit in Larimer County, I think it was about 2 months ago. So this first one is a mountain pine beetle. And you can see in the picture in the upper right how small that insect is. But that's the predominantly what we're seeing. That's what's taking out our trees, and it's very efficient. And we're still we're in moderate drought on that end of the west end of the county still even today. And we've got just going into the drought on this end of the county. So as long as we're in a drought, D1, D2 drought, then we're providing the environment for these insects to thrive. So if you look at this next page, it's their life cycle. They emerge late June, early July. It depends. This year was about August. It was a little bit later this year that they came out. It's supposed to be 1 generation per year. We talked about that. If it's warm in the spring, and they can survive, there's a little less cold to the season and they carry over, then now we've got 2 generations. We're supposed to have 1. We compound that. And then it goes through how they kill the tree and what to look for. So if you've got a tree in your yard, it could still be green, greenish. I think green adjacent. It says the leaves are brown, and it looks like somebody took an 1/8-inch drill bit and went out there with a cordless drill and drilled a bunch of holes all the way around your tree. Don't worry, that tree's already supported the full life cycle. And come on in and have a seat. We'll get you a packet. So this was light reading. I'm not going to go line for line through this. I think this is more for your reference. There's a bunch of stuff in that packet, in your bags, different information. Just for you to read as a personal readiness guide, which comes down to if I need to evacuate my home for any reason, what do I need? That guides you through that process of preparing your home and preparing to leave. So what do you think the fire danger is right here in Idaho Springs? Is that
Awful.
awful? Would it surprise you if I said the actual danger rating? Average danger rate, this is the average rating most days of the week, is low to moderate. Or we sit right here. I'll pass it now. We have the potential for a high intensity fire. If we have the conditions and we're drought and we've got wind and we've got everything lined up and we've got the beetles, we can have a pretty big fire that moves really fast, up to 60 chains an hour. The chain is 66 feet. But the fire that covers 66 chains per hour, that's moving down the valley. We do have the potential for that, but our daily average is, I'll show you, I'll pass this one.
Hey, Jeremy, can you do the math for us?
No.
What's that miles per hour?
I don't have it in my head. Does Max have it in his head? I don't know. Normally I have it in my head. I'll do it. I'll get to you later.
Well, I'll just tell you that there's 80 chains in a mile, and so that's moving. It's moving at about 1 mile an hour, which is much faster than wildland firefighters can keep up with it. That's actually the fire environment, something that we want to get away and make sure everybody can get to safety and evacuate safely. in that type of condition, if that comes to it.
Or just.
That's the potential in these areas here. Yeah, around town. So if you get to like the base of Saddleback, that packet that's coming around out of CWPP, the red to the east is the edge of the Saddleback neighborhood, at Sawmill Gulch, in that area. So we do the polygons to pull the risk. So what we do is we draw a polygon and we pull a risk, basically a risk analysis off that, within that polygon from Colorado State Forest Service. And we did that for different areas to the entire community, it's all in the CWPP, but we pull, so we can polygon an individual neighborhood. For example, your goal, so I can polygon that. It tells me how many homes are there and what the risk is and what the potential is. And this data is better. So if you look at the previous information we had in 2017, from the State Forest to Forest Atlas, which is available, there's a public version of that. You can go to the Colorado State Forest Service website and request access to the Forest Atlas, and you can look at all this mapping. There's a publicly available version of that that's really, really accurate, and it's kind of fallen into a weird wormhole of, ooh, I didn't know that. 4 hours later, you're still mapping stuff. But so in 2017, the data didn't involve LiDAR data. And what LiDAR does is allow them to fly over an area and it'll tell them how many structures there, how many foundations are there, what the ground cover is. So the 2017 risk study, which we put out, didn't have any of that data. So all the what's on the ground was done by people walking the area, going, well, actually, there's actually a shed here, or there's the ground, there's timber litter here, but it didn't show that. In 2022, a company called Technosilva incorporated LiDAR data into the data set. So this data set here is off the 2022 data. It has LiDAR data. Well, the advantage of LiDAR data is we know exactly how many structures are in the neighborhood. If you got 12 sheds hidden in the trees, I can see all 12 sheds on the map. So we're making better decisions now because we've got accurate data. We can see how many sheds are in town, how many buildings are in town, how many buildings in the neighborhood. And it also allows us to have accurate how many buildings are at risk for like wildland fire, wildland urban interface, which is just essentially my built environment being impacted by a wildland fire. So that's everything we live in, all of our homes in town. So we're making decisions off of that, and that's what went into the CWPP. If you look at the next page of that, and this is especially for Idaho Springs residents, this is your area, and CWPP has one. We've got a polygon for every neighborhood set in the county. But I printed the one for here because I want to focus on that for today, and in other meetings we'll focus everywhere else as we talk. Because I think the whole point of this is we talk through your individual neighborhood and your areas of concern, and we look at solutions. Okay, one. So the second page is a rough idea. It's a rough description of what our fuels are within this polygon and what the risks, we think the risks associated with that. In fact, the interstates, the I-70 goes through the middle of this polygon. Doesn't really increase our risk, but it's something we need to be aware of. It does affect how we do projects. There's some stuff we can't do because of Interstate 70. And we've got a little bit of a risk from vehicle fires within the corridor. Adjacent to I-70, way lower here than say Bakerville. You get up west of the county, a fire on the roadway is way higher risk because it's adjacent to fuels. We've got a little bit of a buffer here on the highway, which is good for us. Got bike path, we've got some other stuff. But the whole point of this CWPP is this is a 5-year plan. This isn't a shelf document. This isn't like, well, this is really awesome. It looks good, got good pictures. We throw it on a shelf. This should be our guide to what we should do. So let's look at Idaho Springs. This is the recommendations. We need to perform home hardening to reduce home ignition potential. Yeah. Sorry, Max, I didn't see your hand up.
No, I just raised it, Jeremy. Thanks. Before you jump into the great information that's the plan that's in that community wildfire protection plan, I just want to stop here because I don't think I've introduced myself to everybody in there. Once again, I apologize that I'm not there in person. My name is Max Fergensi. I'm the Clear Creek District Ranger on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forest and Pawnee National Grasslands. My family and I live in Leadville, Colorado, and tomorrow my daughter and I are going to visit some universities. So I had to get here to get there. So once again, my apologies. I'm really looking forward to meeting those that I haven't met in person before, uh, in person, and look forward to this continue. But Jeremy, I just gotta say thank you so much for kicking this off. This is a great first conversation when it comes to our wildfire risk in Clear Creek County and around the surrounding communities. It is definitely not going to be our last conversation. And so I'm just, I can't thank you enough for putting this together and getting some folks in the room and getting the community invited to this. And I also want to thank the city of Idaho Springs for having that there in your council chambers in Idaho Springs. Like I said, I had to take off earlier, but I just want to back up here. All of this work that Jeremy's talking about is because our communities are in a fire-dependent ecosystem, meaning that wildfire has historically been on the landscape for hundreds of thousands of years, both natural ignitions and human ignitions, when we in our civilization, and it was more the Native Americans that were here and those native tribes, they were here, they were using fire on the landscape for their sustenance and use, right? And I'm saying that because in our fire dependent ecosystem is that fire burns. It is supposed to burn. Ponderosa is one type of ecosystem, and that has a different interval that it should be burning in than Douglas fir or even lodgepole pine, where that Douglas fir and the lodgepole pine are supposed to have those fire return intervals of anywhere from 100 to 150 years, right? That's what I would say. There would be something on the landscape in that time, where Ponderosa is closer to 15 to 20 years. And to be clear, anywhere in our county and in Clear Creek County, we have not had a large fire in over 120 years. Okay, that is just the truth. We have, and since that time, there are a lot more. Well, I can't actually say what the population was of Idaho Springs 120 years ago, but I would think there's more people that have built their livelihoods outside of the normal towns, and perhaps more in those fire-dependent ecosystems, right? So we have more people out there in the world, in our communities, that are at risk. And the pamphlets that Jeremy has provided you about how to protect yourself are very important. I'm certain he'll go more in depth with the FireWise communities, right? And how you can protect yourself on your private property. But this takes everybody to get together. And it's not just the National Forest, which is a majority of your public lands here in Clear Creek County. It's the private lands as well. We all have to work together. And I know Jeremy and his staff and the Clear Creek Fire Authority have done a fantastic job where they can to do work along your roadways to provide you egress. And so you can safely or continue that work outside of those major thoroughfares. So again, we have this work, I tell my staff all the time, is never done, right? Trees grow, right? Echo Hills, the project that Jeremy brought up, those trees are growing back, right? So this is a continuation, something, it's like maintaining your garden. If you want things to grow and cultivate, you got to keep going. And right now, I think that we're in a place personally with the folks here that I can see in the room, and Jeremy off the screen, and many other partners, that we have that critical mass that we can move forward to do some really good work. And I do want to talk about that really quickly, about the National Forest and some of our plans here in just a second. But I also want to let everyone else know here, and this does kind of weave into the points that I'm about to make about where the Forest Service is going to be looking for your support in the future to do work. So we know that we haven't had a large fire on the landscape in 120 years. We also know historically 90% of all wildfires are started by humans, right? Those lightning strikes account for a very small majority of those fires, and usually they're in places that are inaccessible, up on ridge tops, mid-slope, right? You don't necessarily get them where we as humans congregate, which are in the valleys. And I will say that because a lot of our human caused fires start from interstates, abandoned campfires, that's dragging chains, right? Or even house fires that get away and escape, right? So, but I would say a lot of them are from abandoned campfires and from issues along the interstates or roadways where somebody breaks down, they have an issue, it starts a vegetation fire and it goes up the hill. And that's how fire likes to grow, is usually when it has topography, that fuel and wind all in alignment. It all wants to go in one direction, and that's usually at these lower elevations where the majority of us live, right? Here we are in Idaho Springs. So what are we going to do about it? Like, that's a question I have. Well, we're not going to do anything without your support. We want to work together with you. And that CWPP that Jeremy is about to open up and talk to you about what types of treatments we can do, both within private lands, but also on public lands, it's a 5-year plan. And there's a lot of elements in there that, as the Forest Service, we want to activate. And so what I've been working towards, first of all, before I go on, does anybody have any questions about what I said before I move on? That can't be true. There is no way. Okay, well, I'll let Jeremy take all of the questions. But what I will say is I got here in January and really quickly recognized the need that there's something that we as a group and as a community have to accomplish together. And that's, how can we make our community safer from wildfire response? How can we make the things that are important to us protected as much as we can? And so I'm out here as the district ranger talking to all the leadership on the Arapahoe Roosevelt and with your commissioners and some of your city council members and saying, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to engage, and let's see what we can accomplish together. In my leadership team, they have a lot of other projects, as you may be well aware of. It's called the Northern Colorado Fireshed, or NOCO. It's a coalition for the fireshed that stretches from the Wyoming border and also includes Clear Creek County. A lot of the work that's been accomplished already, and they're starting this analysis, started up in the response to the East Troublesome fires and the Cameron Peak fire that burned. They were the 2 largest fires in the state of Colorado. And so our forest supervisor at the time said, hey, we got to do something about this, and created this collaborative for Northern Colorado. They started up north, and now they're moving south. If anybody's heard about the St. Vrain project in Boulder County and on the Boulder Ranger District, that was just signed. The decision that allows us to implement some fuel treatments and prescribed fire on the ground was signed earlier this summer. And now they're working into planning treatments to protect communities. Now I'm waving my hands, going like this, saying, hey, we have the same thing down here in Clear Creek County. And fortunately for everyone in this room and for me, is that our leadership team has agreed to start doing a project proposal for fiscal year 26. And our fiscal year for the Forest Service starts on October 1st. So starting October 1st, that's when we're going to start moving on, coming up and developing a proposal on what we can do for your communities. And that is squarely the cornerstone of any of our proposals on National Forest System lands lies within that community wildfire protection plan. There's more we can do, but that is a very good start, and we want to make sure that we're doing that for y'all. So that's where I'm going to stop. That's kind of why I wanted to jump in there, Jeremy, and just kind of segue into what we can do from here when you're opening up that CWPP. But I will say the Forest Service, myself as the district ranger, and the leadership team of the Arapahoe Roosevelt Pawnee are behind you, and so we can start making some meaningful progress on projects here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mac. So that's what we're talking, right? We've got Forest Service support to do projects. We've got a Forest Service desire to do projects. We've got trees within our community that are on Forest Service and on private. I want to say that I think the Hot Springs property might win for the most trees, second to Mr. Young. They still might win because the Soda Creek Range might have more trees because of the higher density. So if we look at this, the CWP, I should read this, but those recommendations are, they start from how do we make our homes more resilient to fire, all the way down to the last three are removing devastating trees throughout the unit and then removing the trees within the Montane Park, Soda Creek, and Pine Slope neighborhoods because we have a concentration here. We do have a concentration on that side of the hill, on Mr. Young's property. He's been very willing to work with us. The issue we have with that particular property is, what do we do with them? How do we get the trees down? We can go cut them, we can do all that stuff, but what do we do with them after we cut them? And that's kind of been the biggest hiccup with the Young Ranch side of the drainage is, how do we get them out of there? Is just putting them on the ground isn't going to solve our problem.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because then they're fuel on the ground, ready to burn when we have a grass fire. So I've got a better chance of grass fire going up the slope underneath them and having the trees stay essentially either intact or burnt as individuals than I do having all of that heavy timber that's now dry on the ground.
So any trees that come down need to be removed eventually,
They do,
including the ones up on 103.
yeah, all of them.
Okay. I just
That's,
hadn't seen any movement there the last year, so.
we haven't got any trees on 103. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking. The majority of 103 is within the Forest Service, right? So how do we get together to say we support a project, private and federal, and we, as a community, get behind that and support that planning, which could happen, start as soon as October. That's why we're starting this meeting. We need to all be champions. I think we are. Let's make it happen. What work do we need to do? How do we support it? Do we need letters? Do we need action on the ground? Do we need to talk to private property owners, which we do? That's the next steps. Like we're currently cutting across in the football field. That's all private. Fire authority.
Fire authority.
We're cutting 6 acres, almost 8 acres. But that's the Whirlwind family. Those that know Pete Whirlwind and his sister. They were very gracious to walk it with us and say, yeah, how soon can you start cutting trees? I don't know, how's the morning sound? So they gave us permission, so we're working on that. That's a Douglas fir stand. Most of the trees have been dead about 2.5 years. But there's some live trees intermixed with that. We found some moth in there. So that's why there's some live trees still standing. So we're gonna see if they survive. If they don't survive, then they go too. So we're doing a little bit of cutting as a fire authority, but there's a limit. It's all money dependent, right? We put about $120,000 a year towards mitigation. And we try to cut it. We've been cutting up in the mountain bike park for 2 years to try to get some of the dead standing up there, which is almost overwhelming. We posted 2 saw classes up there with patrollers at a level ski area to get additional trees cut so we can start processing the wood. So we're 20 years behind, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah,
So how does felling the tree affect the life cycle of the beetle?
well, we've been fortunate in Dumont where we've been able to, we've taken the tree out while the larvae are still in the tree. And we pulled those out of the environment and we stopped the cycle. So
But you have to physically remove them from the
we
environment.
have to take them to a location that they essentially have to die without being able to go to another tree. So we've been successful in that. And the city of Idaho Springs crew has been successful with doing the same thing in the cemetery. Taking infested trees down and then getting them segregated and tarped so the insects die. And then that wood becomes, long-term becomes firewood.
That was my next
But it's
question.
really hard to catch it. We've been lucky on a couple places, but for most of the stuff that we've cut, we're so far behind that those insects have moved on to the new host and we're trying to figure out where that line is. And that's really
How
hard.
long they can stay in the tree.
Yeah, and if we're hoping, let's hope for a cold winter this year. That'll help us out. That'll give us a little bit of time next year to get ahead of some of the stuff that we haven't seen. If it, but to answer your question, then we'll get the map.
I'm fine.
I've got you.
Yeah, just, I know the cemetery where it is, I know what one too, or
Yeah.
it is, where is Mr. Young's property?
He owns the property on the hillside, on the south side of town that comes all the way up against the Argo property. So Bob Young, the Young Ranch goes from there all the way over into almost Central City.
North.
Yes, it's north, it's right north side, south facing slope. That's all Young Ranch up to where it becomes city and where it becomes the Argo property.
And that area is pretty infested.
It's the insects moved through there and then they moved into what is now the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park, and then they're moving north. They're heavy in Blackhawk right now too. So Blackhawk's in the same situation we are, where the trees around the city of Blackhawk are all been infested, and they're all now in the brown waiting to lose the needle stage. So they're getting hit like we've gotten hit. We're all playing the same catch up. What do you got, Max?
Yeah, just to touch base on the beetles, right? There's a few natural ways that trees can protect themselves. I mean, they're not, mindfully protecting themselves, but like one way is moisture, lots of uptake. That's why that drought and the drought condition we have has been so tough on the trees, is when the trees are taking up a lot of moisture and getting a lot of water up their xylem and phloem, right? When the beetles try to bore in, they get pushed out by the sap and they cannot go. They get sapped out, right? It's dry. And when they do go in, right, they send out pheromones that say, hey, follow me, I got one, follow me in, right? And so they go and fly in, and that's how they take over these trees. So hope for some more rain, and so we can actually get some more sap production in these trees. The second part, what Jeremy alluded to, was cold. For whatever reason, winters have been getting warmer, and beetles will also die when they're in the trees if we have successive days of a certain temperature. I think it has to be below 0 degrees for quite some time, 3 or 4 days, to actually kill the beetles while they're in their larvae stage and actually trying to get those other beetles hatched. So hopefully we can have a wicked cold snap, right? And I'm saying that because I'm from the East Coast, right? And we can just kill those suckers in the trees themselves with that wicked cold snap. Now, if I know there's a lot of you that may have nice ponderosa trees in your yard, or even Douglas fir that's getting hit by the tussock moths. Jeremy may be touching on this, but there are certain pheromone packets that you can place on those very special trees that you have in your yards to protect them from the beetles going in. I don't know the cost. I do not know a manufacturer, but they are out there. And what they do is these pheromone packets that are placed on the trees send a signal to those beetles saying, nope, this one's off limits. We can't get in. Go to the next one, right? And so that's how those pheromone packets work. But like I would say that if you do have trees that you want to protect on your private property, I would look into those types of treatments, if at all possible. He did talk about montane as well, so I'm going to touch base on that a little bit. There's a few things that the Forest Service is thinking about for treatments. We're thinking about how we could actually break up, and I believe I've been told that I'm in uh, uh, on a large screen there. So if you think about trying to fragment our areas, our landscape, right? So if a fire does start and want to spread, how can we stop that spread from becoming a very, very large fire, right? And so we're thinking about linear events that allow firefighters a better chance to hold a line. They're called potential operational delineations, or pods, or potential control lines, or PCLs. You can think roadways, ridges, breaks in different types of fuels where it goes from, let's say, ponderosa to sage, or ponderosa to grass, or large outcroppings, the Continental Divide. Although the Continental Divide did not stop the East Troublesome Fire, right? But like a normal fire environment, we're hoping that we have these PCLs, or pods, along roadways or along different vegetation lines or barriers, that we can make meaningful polygons out there that if a fire starts, we can actually manage to those locations instead of letting it go much farther. At least that's the plan. Now, that's where, and I'm no scientist, I believe the biggest opportunity for us in the Forest Service is to work, because it's along corridors that we can easily get this material out, harvest it for timber production if necessary, fuel wood production if we can, for people heating their homes, or even post and pole. There's a lot of different ways that we can use. But then when you start getting into those acreage, those polygon treatments like Jeremy's talking about, they're, like you said, $4,000, $5,000 an acre. So where can those best be treated? Where can we put our money in the best locations for the most benefit, not both from like our trees and our protection, but maybe even the wildlife. And this is where I'll leave it, is there is other projects that have been proposed in fiscal year 26, again, to be planned, not implemented, around the montane area. This is in the very, 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 very infancy. I don't even know if I've been able to talk to anybody in that room about this. That's about wildlife, and actually in making wildlife habitat better. And so we're thinking about doing that in the montane area down to Beaver Brook, where we may have more ungulate production. So we have better forage for deer and elk in that area, and maybe even bighorn sheep, who knows? So again, Jeremy, thanks for letting me jump in there. But I just want to say those couple remarks.
How does this group feel about supporting projects that he's talking about?
Yes.
Where we want to go, right?
Yes.
That's why we want to have it. We wanted to start this conversation. So if there's a copy of the CWPP, this is 174 pages of light reading. She's read it twice. I know she has. Because that's what she does for me. If you go to creekfire.com, you can download it. It's too big to email anybody. We've tried about 12 different ways and we failed every single time because it's over the threshold. Please download it. I say light reading, but it covers every area in the county. And we did some stuff that we've never done. So Evergreen Fire did a really good job of breaking up their district into basically operational zones. We had never done that over here. So we did that. It's 10 of them in the county. Henderson Mine being one all to itself, because that's a unique risk all to itself, right? So, yeah.
Can you say about the high power lines that run right across up into Black Hawk? Right over my house, for example.
Yeah, so in fact, we'll get into that. So Xcel Energy changed mitigation companies. This year, they canceled their contract with their previous company, went with a new company, and they agreed to change their prescription. They used to meet the minimum standards, so there's no treetop within 6 feet or 10 feet, depending on voltage. And the new company is no trees under the power line. Pretty awesome. We never thought, I would have argued it never happened, what's happening. So they're doing that, but they're also, now they're doing twice as much work per mile of line. It's gonna take longer to get it done. So they've been working on the west side of the county, and they're working their way this direction. And I think part of the reason they're doing that is on the same time on this end of the county, and I think everybody's seen the traffic poles. They're replacing more poles and transformers I've ever seen replaced.
Yeah.
So all these areas that we joke, we have one in our station. Is hopefully it gets replaced this week or next week. We've been kind of postponing, but we told the Ward Electric guys, if you replace our transformer, we'll lose all our fun in the wintertime because we watch it smoke and burn every winter.
Oh.
What are we supposed to watch in January? And the guy just goes, we're just gonna replace it. So that's what they're doing. They're replacing lines, they're replacing connectors, they're doing poles, they're doing transformers. And they're working their way through all of these high risk areas that they know from the maintenance records. It's not one fire, it's like we've had 12 fires on that pole over here. This is the third pole that's been there, and that transformer's been fired every year for the last 6 years. They're doing all that work. Huge investment. We're pretty stoked about it, because we're seeing the change. They're also realigning some of the power lines, so like in Middle Pass for the lake, the reservoir, the power lines have moved the other side of the road. We think that's great. It's a huge expense, but that's all part of that project. So they've been doing some good work, and you've got more for this.
Can you share how it's being funded?
I'm not sure exactly how all it's funded, except for probably we're all paying for it. It's
Great news.
What's that?
Great news. Yep, it's
Yeah,
in your, it's in your electrical bill.
I'm pretty sure we're all paying for it.
But the good news is Excel has a really big area. So this is one of the ways that folks in the metro area are helping pay for this work.
Sure.
So it's on our bill, but it's on their bills too.
But it's just for that Excel service area.
Yeah,
It was Excel that got through the PUC, permission to increase rates to do this work.
Core has done a little bit of work, which has been good. But yeah, Excel is ahead of everybody, which is, for us, is good. It's this side of the county, and it's all stuff to the west. But let's go further in the power companies, what they've done. We have what we call panel AI cameras. They're fire detection cameras. They're all throughout the quarter. There's one. So Core Electric put the first one in the county, and it's on Nestahay Tower, which is great. It looks at all 4 directions, so we can see an evergreen. You can see the backside of it's still the Evans Wilderness, even though it's the backside of Mount Blue Sky. You can see all of this side of Soda Creek into Blue Valley. Really accurate, to the point it alerts when we have residents start up their outdoor stoves, their outdoor boilers, the cameras pick it up. But great, it's working. So they did that. So Excel was a little behind on that because they were slower on the implementation phase. But so Bellevue Mountain, for those that know, that can look and sees Idaho Springs, looks and sees all the way up the valley. There's one there. There's one in Dakota Hill over in Gilpin County, which sees this part of the county for us. Mines Peak has a functioning camera, which is the top of Berthoud. The fire that happened in Eagle County, a month ago, I got an alert on my phone for the fire. I'm like, fire's like way in Eagle County because the camera on top of Mines Peak on Berthoud picked it up. 19 cameras picked up that fire when it started. They're putting one, they were working on getting one on Saxon Mountain with Georgetown this year. And they're working on getting another one on Loveland Pass. All of these cameras are something we didn't have previously. So before we had, well, I think there was a lightning strike. I think we see smoke, or we rely on a hiker to report it. And we were finding stuff 3 and 4 days later. We're finding stuff in real time. We're getting alerts. As soon as the first puff of smoke goes up, the cameras are hit. And they're giving us a location, a rough location. If we get 2 or 3 cameras that see the same thing, it pinpoints it within about 10 feet. So that allows the Forest Service crews in Idaho Springs and us to immediately go out there, almost walk right to it, because they give us, here's coordinates. Oh, look, It's right here, and we caught one in Chicago Lakes 2 days ago. Lightning strike, it was 3 by 3, 2 miles up from the reservoir in Chicago Lakes. And it was still 3 by 3.
3 feet by 3 feet.
Lightning strike on a rock, 3 feet. So this is, the technology helps us and we're using it.
So it sounds like it would also identify an abandoned campfire that might be
It does,
smoking.
it picks up we've, not this year, but last, in 2024, they picked up, I think, 183 abandoned campfires within the zone, which also includes Grant County, right? That's 183 potential wildland fires that were picked up either by cameras or by, we'll back up a step. So the Forest Service did some really amazing things over the last couple of years. They put in prevention techs. And they're amazing. They're the best things in sliced bread, in my opinion. They're wildland firefighters, but their job is they patrol all of these campsites and all these camping areas, checking campfire rings, talking to people about safety. They do amazing work. Most of the 183 campfires that were discovered that were abandoned or that got out were found by the 2 prevention techs. All of that was funded by the Forest Service increasing their ability to detect early detection of fires and early suppression. They have our radios. They can talk to Jeff Com just like we can. They can talk to us. So all of this stuff is improving our safety, but from a suppression perspective. And what we're talking about today is how do we lower the risk before we have a fire? And like, how do we pay for it? So we're putting along. Let's do this, take like a 10-minute break, because I guarantee at least one person is like, I need to go to the bathroom like 15 minutes. And we'll continue about funding and new questions and details. That work?
Yep, thank you. Okay.
Jeremy,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna have to leave at 7, so I'm gonna take my leave now, if that's okay. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you as always, and I will catch up with you.
Yeah.
You're
Look
back
forward to
in-
seeing you
Good to see you too.
all in person next time.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
Bye, Max.
Ciao.
I'm gonna try.
Where's he?
He lives in West Reading.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, he was over at the Mass State Forest. Previous. Well, like tonight when he's talking about. Yeah, because he still lives over there.
Well, because they're just gonna take-
College.
Yeah, he's a city council member over there.
He's amazing. Normally when we get to it. So. We're not actively being part of it. And maybe the camper, the backpacker. In Arkansas. The camera doesn't know, the camera just knows exactly. And then we go out to California, we go back and visit. We end up meeting a lot of people. We spend a lot of time in the woods. How's your camping trip going? And we talk about, fire safety, making sure it's all legal. So there's a lot of interface. Which we really like. Otherwise, it's just technical. How are you guys out here? You gotta work on the camera.
Yeah.
Very nice to see.
Early, a little bit of education there. It also benefits us. So just a light smoky city. I don't want spaces. Now there's a system with it. It's kind of been an interesting
Keeping,
I joke, I see a lot of them that way. And support services.
Oh, this started, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
And a little really hard. We say human cause. No, it's just the reason right here.
It doesn't.
Human cause, vehicle fires, truck fires. They built that project because that allowed them to put a forest over I can't. They exceeded first open. Yes, sir. Well, I we're gonna go back. I'll give us a chance.
Those trees, did they get killed by the pine beetle or is there some other insect?
Those were actually the moths. We know it's the moth. Go get her, boy, he's like 90 years old. Just thought he would be the guy that would climb up in the tree and validate that we had moth on several trees, and he did. We thought it was moth, but we wanted to make sure it's the moth, it's in the Doug fir. And we're trying to cut. We cut ahead of it. On both sides, because it's still green on the east side, where the Forest Service trail, hiking trail walked up. We didn't get into that. We cut that line and we came in about 10 feet from the last infected tree. We're trying to save that little triangle, so that trail's there. And then we're working to the west right now on the second property, and then, Andy support, there's some city property there that has the same issue. And this looks like it's about another 2.5 acres against the trail to the bridge. They were cutting that actually. Active fire. So will we get it all done this year? Probably not, but I figure every tree that's cut, processed and removed, one less, issue. And then we're trying to get it.
Who had the information, or where can we find out information about these pheromone packets that can help with it?
A lot of it, get with any of your local tree companies or arborists, and they usually have connections to buy those. That's what we've been, even in the evergreen side, there's 4 or 5 companies that are really good about coming out with it. Who wants to go?
It's in response to this. I am not here from the extension office, but I work at the extension office in Griffin, and it's on our website.
Good. Even better. We had that same conversation the other day with we had a regional walk for the Beals here last week, and we were talking about availability and who does contact a lot of people can contact local artists and, hey, could you come out and tell me how many trees I should put a patch on versus how many trees are one step beyond, we missed the mark on, which has happened in Evergreen on several properties. There's a lot of options, but I think we need to collectively all get ahead of it if we can.
Yes, that would be a wonderful handout to give to the people in the community.
I will see if I can get with Dr. West and see if he can give me some more information. We had a brief conversation last week. And she probably had way more information.
Well, I'm sure, I'm sure.
It's that connection.
I'm not official, but,
Thanks for coming to this one. Yeah,
Are the packets just for the beetles or are they for the beetles and the moths?
I think they're both, mainly the beetles. There's the whole variety of beetles is the pheromones that the packets working over. There's two of them, one's white, one's green. I don't know which one catches which. I'm rolling on my head right now, but there's two versions. And a lot of the places that we dealt with in the evergreen side use both, just to make sure they cover the array of species.
My question is the moth, the lifespan similar or in the damage to the tree?
No, it's very similar.
Is damage to the tree similar?
Yeah.
The same effect,
In fact,
starving of water.
thanks to Dylan.
That is exactly.
It's not, you got to pass it around. It was one.
I can print more of those.
We can print more, and all this stuff, all these packets are available on the Colorado State Forest Service website. You can download all of these packets. They used to be hard copies, we had to order them. They're all digital. You can get information on a whole bunch of stuff you really want to know and stuff you didn't think you wanted to know. About 4 hours later, your hard drive is full, but you know about everything. All readily available in PDF form, so. Yeah.
Blue spruce and the aspen are not affected.
Blue spruce are predominantly not affected. But blue spruce have a different issue. They like to grow all the way to the ground, right? Their branches go all the way to the ground, so this is an opportunity for us. And most people don't do it, but we need to limit them up. We need to cut the lower branches about 8 feet in the air so we can have a ground fire go past the blue spruce. We tend to not do that. Most of them in the community, if you look, are exactly that. They're all the way to the ground. All the timber litter is underneath in a big pile around the trunk. And they're just kind of waiting for an excuse to have an ember blown in there.
I always heard that limiting them up makes them unstable because they act like a sail and the wind can.
It doesn't change the branches on the bottom don't provide any support. They're still the
Not
same,
as support, it just breaks up the wind.
not historically.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I know, I've heard the same thing. But cutting them up off the ground actually allows them to survive.
Okay.
They're like a big pile of kindling.
Yeah.
Because their branches are very small, they're jagged, and they readily burn. I've lost some wood, I'm finding one of those that Very good.
I just want to say Jordan's heard me hearing about the tussock moth because I brought them in. So I noticed the tussock moth a couple years ago in Dumont.
Yeah.
And so we had them on our blue spruce actually, it was a trio, and we saw all the cocoons and stuff, so we cut those down and burned them. They said they had to mitigate well.
They do.
And I think we did mitigate that, but my parents have it in Idaho Springs, it's one of those super, super tall trees. And those
The
are
one in the
so,
front yard?
yes,
Yes.
and it's dying. What can people in town, or what help do they get? They're ready to cut the trees down, but.
Well, that's kind of, we'll get to that. That's
Okay.
one of the conversations we want to have today. That'll be fun, even that type of mitigation.
Can I understand that cameras, you can see most of the camera?
Yeah.
And for a fire, is it drones or what?
What's that?
Drones or?
No, it's a fixed camera. There's a fixed point. There's 4 cameras. They're 360-degree cameras. They use an artificial intelligence program that's fairly accurate. The final development was over in Aspen for this company in 2020, finished in 2021. And they're looking for smoke column. That's what they pick up. They also pick up really cool dust coming out of like Red Mountain and Henderson. That's been this year. It's like, oh, look, Henderson's moving some rock. Cameron tells me that. And they will pick up snow events. On occasion, we get alerts in the wintertime. It's like, well, we've got a foot of snow on the ground and it's not just snow moving down. If it's a little thicker here than it is here, because how it's moving, they'll pick that up. But overall, they've been a lot more accurate than I think we ever thought they would be. That's kind of optimistic, like, yeah, sure, we've seen a false alarm all the time. Most of the time, if we get an alert, it's legitimate. What's that?
Better than spotters.
Way better than spotters. And it doesn't pick up, pine and juniper pollen. We were worried about pollen plumes. The technology doesn't pick those up. That was
So is that a problem when we're all having our fireplaces going?
No. Well, in town is good. It's a problem on like Blue Valley a little bit. I think there's 4 or 5 wood fire boilers up there. But we reached the point now we go, oh, that's so-and-so's house. He's stoking the boiler. And we've almost got the dispatchers trained to recognize the same houses. We're getting there. They look at the cameras too. So Jeffcom can see the cameras. If I get an alert on my phone, they have more on the console. And their supervisors have the same access I do, and they can zoom in and they can look at it, they can get coordinates, and they're actively doing that. So that's a good thing. So it's kind of a triple layer in that aspect.
Can I bring up one thing?
Definitely.
Okay. Hiking and you go out in these cars, there's not an awareness out there. You don't park next to this grass and, you know, and start a fire. I mean, it's happened. And there's not the awareness. I
agree. And I think that's likely how do we as a community, without having to interface with some other people that maybe don't want to talk to us, raise awareness, but yeah.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, you don't see any signs. I think I saw it one time at a hiking trail. You not back up and park next to this dry grass, you can start a
Right.
fire. And I believe it happened down in, by Durango.
There's one in
The same
Durango
one,
and
horrible fire.
Colorado Springs Police Department burned a whole bunch of acreage 3 years ago next to the airport. Apparently a Chevy Tahoe in tall grass
Mhm.
while arresting somebody means your Tahoe. I didn't know that, but I did drive by it.
Mhm.
I was down there for a class at the time and went, oh, that's real. So I think it's an opportunity for us to do maybe signage and some other stuff. It's educational opportunities for all of us.
My 2 cents, and this takes a moment to, there's a lot of signs out there for people that not to read. I think we just need to physically walk places that we don't have to provide them. Just boulders, whatever.
Oh, no.
It takes money, but
Okay.
I think that's what we should do.
Not opposed to it. We find cars, places that we didn't ever find cars. It's kind of bizarre to me. Walk up on vehicles all the time in places we shouldn't see a car. Yeah,
Is the hunting season a concern at all for fire?
not really. Hunting season historically has been really safe. The concern, let's go into the shooting. George can elaborate on this, but those that don't know, the Devil's Nose shooting range, the Forest Service build is done. I'm super excited because the south side of the ARP of our forest now has a no shooting order. It's like winning the lottery
Yeah.
because target shooters, usually not from our community, because I think we all know better. They come up from Denver with all of their friends and they shoot in places they shouldn't shoot. And they also shoot things they shouldn't shoot, like propane cylinders and all these varieties of things that are really cool, I've heard. That started firing. That's what the Montane fire we had here about a decade ago was. One person shooting propane cylinders in the middle of the field, which is why that's all blocked off now and gated. So this is where we go, the commissioners are working to finish up the shooting range in Dumont. I'm really excited about that too, because once that's in place, then we get a no shooting order on this side of the county and the forest. And that hopefully solves, it doesn't solve our shooting problem, but what it does do is it increases our ability for the sheriff's office and Forest Service law enforcement especially to write tickets. What we wanted the Forest Service LEOs to write tickets because that's no longer we'd like you to go through the county court judge and not do this is, congratulations, you can go to the federal center, it's federal court, here's your citation. Don't worry, it's gonna be expensive. Have a nice day. And we're really hoping for that. Orders to go into place so they have a little more enforcement than even the sheriff's office does. Because it's written in federal court, there's a little more of an impact to that. So we work with them, Brian Fields, our local LEO here. We have these conversations a lot because it's the bane of his existence is how do you control unsafe shooters in the forest? And what enforcement ability do we have? And those orders give him the last little thing he needs to really enforce those laws.
Who gets the money when they're funded?
It goes back, I think ultimately it goes back to the Forest Service.
Oh,
The Forest Service fund. So that's the stuff that pays for like our prevention tax,
okay.
which, like I said, we love our prevention tax. That's the best thing in the time I've been here, that's the best thing they could have come up with is those two technicians that drive around and call us and say, hey, you got a second? You wanna come help me with this? They find a lot of campfires and this anomaly stuff really early. They've been amazing. Yeah.
My question was gonna be about cameras, but you just mentioned prevention. Could they go to our schools and talk to our kids?
I will ask them.
Fire prevention, that'd be amazing. But
Yes.
my real question was, is there any part, you said that the majority of the county has cameras, but are there big sections of the county that don't have cameras, but that's part of the plan is to get cameras?
I think
there?
the biggest section that may not have a live camera today is the backside. So Saxon Mountain was above Georgetown, so the cameras there, which look into the U Creek, Cascade Creek, and Trail Creek drainages. Is probably our biggest open area that doesn't have active cameras, but that should almost be online. They were trying to get that done this year. And that will pick up that area. Because Mestay can look across into that drainage.
Yeah.
And having the camera on Saxon allow us to actually get coordinates, accurate coordinates on that. The one on top of Mines Peak can look back that way. On top of Berthoud and it can help. And then Summit County has a series of cameras. They're almost everywhere. It's it. Yeah.
Well, the fire department used to do fire prevention, does it not do that
No,
anymore?
we still do. We still go to the schools and we've got more information. In your packet is a version of the teenager ready, set, go information and the child, like 7-year-old. We have all of that. We'd love to get out in front of more kids. Because what we found out from a fire prevention perspective, sometimes it's hard to get the parents to engage. I think we can all agree upon that. But it's really amazing when you set the 8-year-old up with all the information and you get them all riled up and you send them home. Parents get really engaged because their 8-year-old is now right in front of them going, this is amazing, check this out. It also works with teenagers, which we would probably argue that's not the case, but it does work. We found that if we get the same information to like 13 and 14-year-olds, they're heavily engaged when they get home. So we're trying to expand that as an organization and get that information into some of these homes that way. Maybe not as successful as we want to be, but we're trying.
What discussion has occurred already for private landowners about removing trees and mitigation and that kind of stuff?
That's the stage we're at now. Again, this is Dan Nolan in the crowd here. He's one of our captains. He's now one of our ship captains, but he can attest that we're both those people like, well, we're going to get shot today or we're going to talk to somebody. Let's go see who's home. So we started doing that.
Yeah.
Just technically, if you don't have no trespassing signs every 450 feet, you can't legally shoot me. Okay, remember that. We do that. So we go talk to people. And that's what we're trying to get into some of these private landowners. But that leads us into funding, because if we're looking at the average cost, I believe your mom's a perfect example of this. I've had long conversations with her $3,000 tree, because that's what it's going to cost to remove one tree between her house and the neighbor's house, because it's a technical removal. How do you pay for that? And we're hearing that everywhere. I think Lisa's got a $2,500 tree that she's, she owns it, it's hers. How do you get rid of it? So that brings us into funding. from the city, let's go back to the city level right now. What funding sources would you guys collectively support? There's a lot of options, but they're all have the controversial side of it. You know, one of the things we want to do is protect our watershed, which is a water plant and all that stuff. And normally how districts do that is they have a fee on your water bill. What would be the temperature of that, for example? That's what I thought, great.
My question would be, after you and I chatted, Evergreen has a grant program. How are they funding that? It didn't say where the grant was coming from, it just said that they had.
They don't really have much of a thing.
Oh, so that's not entirely true.
It's not, so we'll talk about Evergreen, I can talk a little bit. Evergreen currently spends $1 million a year on mitigation. $1 million. And they aren't making it in. That's the funding level we're talking about. So that's what I want ideas. How would you guys fund it? Because part of the funding is, how do we develop a funding mechanism that, for example, let's use this, throw it out there for, if you're a property owner and you cut down 2 trees and it costs you $5,000, but you can get 50% of that covered by a grant, that offsets the cost. And if you can prove you're low income and can't afford to do it, and you qualify with a program that maybe pays for those tree removals. All those are great ideas, but how do we fund it? How do we get the funds available? Is that through a tax, like a forest improvement district? Is that through $10 on every water bill? You pay $10 and ultimately that helps reduce the risk. That's what we're kind of here tonight too. I want ideas from you guys, because I know you have better ideas than all of that. Yeah.
So I heard, but this might not be true, that we are gonna get on our ballot an option to pay more tax for this cause. And I was thinking that's awesome, but maybe we should not call it tax, because I know a lot of people, when they hear the word tax, they're like, no, I hate tax, I don't wanna pay tax, so I would call it more, I don't know, a contribution, or I don't know. Go away from the word tax.
Statute requires us to call it that on the ballot. So yeah, real quick, if you live in the unincorporated part of the county, so not in the municipal boundary, you are gonna see a question on your ballot requesting funds, and part of those funds, the increase in those mills is to fund our current mitigation program and allow us to expand, do more work, do more project planning, which lines up with what Max said. If Max wants to do project planning, we need the capacity to have somebody in the room to help champion that, that's where the private lands come in. They plan on Forest Service. We plan with the private landowners, and we do this cross-boundary projects. And Division of Fire Prevention Control, which does all the state fire, which took over for state fire responsibility for this, like state forestry, down at the FPC. Cross-boundary project, we can also bring them in, bring state resources into these projects, and do work on private land, as long as we have agreements. So that's one of the things that we're asking, as a district, asking for more money. And one of the things we're asking for is to be able to fund that individual that does those planning operations and gets these projects from concept to actually work on the ground.
This is probably not popular or could be controversial, but this has become a tourist mecca. Like the Raptors and the ATV and the zip lines.
Yep.
I think there should be a small fee on every one of those.
We
That's you.
agree. Would you like to
Oh, wow.
They all.
partake on this?
Yeah, I
This is
would.
perfect.
I agree. We need the legislature to agree, and we need the governor to agree. Counties cannot right now propose taxes or fees on recreational services. And what that means is that county voters can't even have the conversation. Cities, a little different. They actually could propose a tax on all the raft trips that take place inside Idaho Springs. And that's a conversation I would love to participate in as a constituent of y'all.
We'll let you input if you guys have it, but yeah.
What's the hurdle to overcome with the county charging the tax?
The way state law works, counties basically can do the things that the legislature has thought, maybe counties should be able to do that. And they haven't done that with this one.
It's not one of the allowable things that the counties can do.
So we can do, we can basically propose sales taxes or property taxes. That's why we're proposing property tax.
So I think that the bottom line to tie into him is we need everybody in the room to contact their state representative to go, hey, we think this is an issue and we would like to see it change. It's gotta be pushed from the community level up, more so than elected officials. We don't wanna see it change. Yeah, we don't. But when the community is saying the same thing, now there's a little bit more motivation to start taking action. Love to see that happen.
And if you're talking to our state rep, Leslie Smith or our state senator, Dylan Roberts, say thanks, because they're on board with us.
They've already heard our speech about 40 times and they're like, we got it, we're working on it, we need everybody else. That's where we need community level engagement to go. This is an issue and it's solvable. Why aren't we solving? That's lift tickets, it's raft trips, that's zip line trips, that's train tickets, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the community that brings visitors in. That unless they buy a Snickers bar, we get, wow, we got 3 cents off if we're winners. There's no cost offset to the community.
So if I want to support this, can somebody write a letter with exactly what we're asking for, and then I can copy that letter and send it to somebody?
I think it's a viable option. What's your input on that? You're way better at this than I am.
I think that would be awesome. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
George, who owns Guanella? The road. I mean, I know,
Quinella Pass, oh, that's a county road.
that's what I thought. You know, the Forest Service started charging fees up Blue Sky. $10 a car or whatever it is. I've thought for a long time, somebody ought to be charging somebody to go up Guanella, but I don't know the.
You want to take that?
logistics.
Because that's been in discussion.
That was one of our goals this year. We
What's
looked
the
into it. We would have to go through a very significant planning process with an uncertain outcome to be able to hold.
Well, that's it. And quite honestly, my family works with tourists here and they already see in Idaho Springs, we have a 10% sales tax. Oh my God, I mean, there comes a point when you can only pile so much up.
I do have the opinion that we're worth it for what it's worth. This is one of the things that I think as our community evolves, how we think about ourselves, I have the opinion that we're worth it.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying,
How do you-
from the people who are here and paying it out, it is a significant issue.
The bigger problem, sorry, I'm thinking.
No, this is an open forum. This is why we're doing this.
The bigger problem from my perspective is that we don't exempt food from our sales taxes. So if we're gonna raise sales taxes, it's gonna cost you more for a loaf of bread, and I'm not sure I like that.
Well, when the gondola opens, there's gonna be a lot more people coming in and using those mountain bike trails.
Or
And why could you get a fee on the gondola
And bike trip.
and the bike trails?
you want to?
Because we got the liability on the bike trails.
Bike trails is recreation, where else should we have, but making a condo is not recreation.
But besides, that, I ride my bike up to Georgetown all the time. And I just worry about the land. We're not gonna get it back. We don't get it back if we're abusing it and using it, or these trails, I mean, I don't know, I'm worried about it.
I agree. I think it's,
Our
I think the reason, I
beautiful
think the biggest reason we're having these discussions is we have 100, we were looking at a historic burn scar the other day next to the reservoir fire, which was 78. For those over here, they all remember it. We were adjacent to that, and the burn scar adjacent to it is probably 120, 130 years old up in Chicago Lake Stream. So we've got this weird history of, we have, and the reason we haven't had a major fire in 120 years is because we did a really cool thing in mining. We cut every tree out there. We deforested it also, nothing to burn, go along fire. And now we've got regrowth from 1938 on. The mining fell off, so now we have regrowth from 38 on. And in that same period of time, Forest Service are doing suppression as they currently do in 1910. So now we've got really good fire suppression. We don't let anything burn. It gets to an acre, we go, oh man, we let that one go too far. Even though we probably should let some things go a little bit, but we don't. We've managed that all full suppression from 1910 on. And now we're sitting in a situation where we haven't burned any of the forest in a healthy way in that period of time. It's regrowth. And the density is twice what it should be because we haven't been able to manage it effectively. And that leads us to where we're here today going, what are we willing, and this is the last question, what are we willing to give up in the, around us if we don't take the appropriate action or if we don't find a way to fund it? I think that's where we're at that point. So we collectively have to come up with a solution as a community to let us take action and support the action taken, especially with the Forest Service that has, they've got funding, but they need support. And if we're not willing to do that, then what in our environment are we willing to go, well, it used to look really nice.
We looking at national forest policy changes about cutting down some of these trees.
Yeah, that's some of the conversations we've been having with Max that came on the Ranger District. I think there's some options. So Mastic Forest, which is southeast of Lake County, Leadville, they had a really robust firewood program similar to what Grand County had. And that's how they did 90% of the thinning, and then they came back and they finished it. They with Forest Service employees and some road improvement and some rehab. I guess my question is, would you as a community support that within the Arapahoe?
Yes.
I think we all would, I would.
Yes.
Grand County did something very similar. Henderson Mine did it on their property for years as the beetles were approaching on the mill property. And now that's all good, it's meadow, and because the employees cut all the trees, they did the mitigation before mitigation, I guess, was cool. That was all the way through the early 80s, so I think it's an option.
And I'm not talking about cutting all the trees, I'm just talking about cutting the ones that are obviously dead out of the
Yeah,
national
dead
forest.
standing, so that's some of the conversations that we've been having with the Forest Service, is how do we do that? How do you issue a wood cutting permit that has rules that says dead standing or diseased trees go, and one of those, that's the stuff that we're looking at with the Ranger
So then
District.
that spreads it.
What's that?
It spreads it sometimes. I
Well,
mean, that's another whole.
Yeah, and that's why we have to be really careful on how they do it.
Yeah.
So if we say you only cut trees that are all brown, perfect, because we know that the trees that are all brown are 1 year into the cycle. And we found only a couple we've been able to find carryover in. Most of them they're dead. And then the dead standing without needles, we know those are at least 2 years in. Yeah, we could cut those and make them into firewood. Our program, every tree that gets cut by us or half the forestry companies that we work with, local, and get dropped off, become firewood in the community. Because that's that utilization. So we processed a ludicrous amount of firewood. We created a monster. It wasn't intentional. We started out with like 10 families. Like, this is great. 2 cords per family is 20 cords. We're winning. We're about 120 cords a year now. They get distributed to families, which is great. So we're taking wood from other projects. We're taking wood from the Argo project. I mark the trees, they cut the trees, they get rid of the brush, we take the wood, and it becomes firewood. So we're doing that so it's not just cut laying in the forest. All of this stuff is a solution, but we're so far behind, we need like 40 solutions all working in the same direction.
I know I bought beetle killed wood over at Home Depot.
Yep.
Could commercial companies be brought in to?
They say there's not a lot of commercial value anymore. So previous life, mid 2000s, I worked a lot of logging projects over in the Gore Pass area around Kremlin. And a lot of the stuff in Grand County, but back what they were doing then is everybody had a pellet stove. Right? Everybody had a pellet stove. And what did you do on weekends? You went and bought a ton of pellets and you put in your pickup and you repeated that every winter, and that's what you did. So there was a pellet plant that was in Kremlin, and the pellet plant moved to Silver Plume for a long time. And that was the market for all of that beetle kill. That became pellets. And that market collapsed. At the same time that market collapsed, we've got the nearest mill, we've got a mill in Montrose, and the next nearest one in Saratoga, Wyoming, to process timber. So during that same period of time, we lost the ability to mill timber within the state of Colorado because the mills shut down. So now you talk to logging companies, like, well, we have to drive 3 times as far to get to the mill. It's no longer economical. That's the only thing that changed the market. So I'm not totally sure what the solution is. I would love to see something come back that we, and he mentioned post and pole, Leonard peeling. Rick Leonard and his dad had, did poles out of, Fraser for years. His dad did that for 16 years. They're not doing that as much as they did. So that also went away. So then we lost that source for the timber to go. So I think that's kind of the dilemma is how do you generate a market? And if you look at what's going on in Evergreen, with Jefferson County open space, those trees were timber marketable. But that's getting a lot of public pushback for the work they're doing. Right, wrong, or different. I don't really have an opinion on it. I see the posts on both sides and I know their dilemma. Those guys are pretty close.
But how much money are you talking? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
About how much money are you talking? You say, how many people we have in, Cherokee County and your 5-year program, how much money per person?
What do you think? We talked about this, but you have better numbers than I do.
So this is, I'm glad, today I was at the Wildfire Collaborative Summit. The chief of the state forest said that the state of Colorado needs to spend $200 million a year for the next 30 to 50 years to overcome this problem. The message I have when I go into regional collaboratives like that, and I'm on the board of the Milko Fire Shed that was mentioned earlier, et cetera, I point out to them, I'm like, hey, we've got this fancy tax measure on the ballot. You put a whopping $100,000 towards your $200 million problem. Like, you might need to think about how to invest up here in our forests, because by the way, there are people all the way to the western edge of Westminster that rely on this forest not burning down for their water access. And so, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit about it. I'm going to get there. So, the state of Colorado is working very hard to come up with how to fill that funding gap. Our Forest Service, with our new forest ranger, is very serious about doing work here. We do not have to pay every penny for every acre that needs to be treated. What we need, from my perspective, and Jeremy, correct me if you think I'm wrong, what we need a base level of investment so that we can say, yes, we're here and we're competent partners. We know how to convene our community like this, like we're doing now, so that the projects are supported. And we've got some basic planning in place. I think if we can do that, then we can see investment come here. And there are a lot of other forest improvement districts was mentioned. This is a special district government that could cover that whole area and put like a 0.1% sales tax and generate real money to do work up here. In the meantime, I think what we have to focus on as a community is making sure that what Jeremy's up to, what Clarissa's up to, et cetera. Clarissa over here hasn't been introduced yet. She's a county employee, Office of Emergency Management.
We let her hide in the corner because I owed her that much.
She was trying to hire a friend last year and we had to eliminate the position because of the county's financial position. What we need to do locally is just make sure, and by the way, Jeremy, I think, I don't want to brag for you. Jeremy works really hard and he doesn't like to talk about it. Jeremy might be an hour 50 of his work week to be here talking to you all. And so that's the investment we need to make. I think with a couple $100,000, we can make sure that Jeremy and Clarissa have enough friends that they can continue to have these meetings, continue to educate you all, and we can actually be credible and attract the kinds of statewide and regional and federal investments that we need to solve the problem. That's what I think. And so I think that's achievable, right? $200,000 sounds like a lot in your personal budget, but if we all collectively find a way to pay a tax, or accept a water bill increase, I think we can do this. I don't think it's out of reach.
200 a year or 200 total?
I think we should be trying to figure out how to spend around $200,000 a year more than we are now. That would be like a $50,000 mitigation grant program. It'd be some more staff for Jeremy. It would be a friend for Clarissa, and it would be a CSU extension agent. and we'd be pretty close to there.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had that same conversation good afternoon today.
I did this one.
Yes. We also support CSU extension coming back to our county. We're excited about that in this realm.
Jody's here, she.
So those of you that don't know, I'm also a county commissioner. I work with George. I also have been working, so, I testified twice for the POC with the, Excel. Excel wants to raise rates again. We don't want them to raise rates to put money in, you know, give them record profits. We want them to put the money where it needs to go, which is for our community as fire mitigation. That's one thing. Another thing is we also belong to other organizations. I belong to NOCO, which is not the NOCO fire. It's a different, it's Laramie, Boulder, Gilpin, Jefferson County, and Clear Creek, the national parks and the national forest. So I work with Max too. And there are plans to work on some of this in 2026. We've applied for NOCO grants to help us with ambassadors. We talk about the trails, people getting on the trails, the fires that are being left. We had to the commissioners put out an unattended fire a few weeks ago. Relate to a meeting they were not happy, but we did not leave. We took all of our water bottles and just kept putting this fire out. So it's gonna take, I think, the community to support what this is the main thing, is this support, and that's what Max was asking for. So when we're going and asking for money for these grants, one of the grants that we're part of is $2.5 million. We're not gonna get all of that because we have to share it with them, but the mitigation and the trail ambassadors to educate people to not drag their chains. You know, they bring the ATVs, they've got their chains. We had 3 fires in the Dumont area, just boom, boom, boom. So parking on the grass, you know, some people just don't know, and educating them. So NOCO is putting out a video that I think I sent to Jeremy, and they are hiring influencers. So we all talk differently than millennials and Gen Zs. They all talk through Snapchat and Instagram. And so they're making videos of them coming up and being safe in our environment. So I think right now the big thing is to give the fire authority support, give the national, talk to your neighbors and let them know, you know, what we're up to. There's a lot of people I see complaining on Facebook. What is the county doing with all those trees in Idaho Springs? And we all know that's not us. Idaho Springs doesn't take care of the national forest. There are tons of boundaries that the collaboration that we have to work on. So,
Maybe they should show those videos in bars and restaurants in town for tourists.
Not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, we're trying to spread them around. So maybe I'll put them on Facebook and you can grab them off and just spread them around.
What you got?
So I have 2 things actually. The first is I really think changing the community, because there's a huge discussion, we talk about Facebook, there's a huge discussion right now in our community group about why do we have fire ban? Why can't we just go back and forth like other counties do? And, oh yeah.
Really? We just came out, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're out of fire ban as of like right now because we don't meet criteria. We actually kept it collectively because so fire ban is not just us. I'm on a meeting with Greg Gimo, the sheriff of Gilpin County, for example, Boulder County, Laramie County, Jefferson County, which is Brian Keating, the Forest Service supervisors, and all the analysts. We're on a meeting every Monday to talk about fire risk, the actual science behind it. The state statute requires the sheriff is allowed to put in a fire ban only if it is backed by science. And the reason it's that way is you can't have a sheriff go, well, it's Tuesday, we're going to stage 2 because it's Tuesday. I had a bad morning. Statute doesn't allow that. So we meet every week, all year long during season, and we meet offline to figure out fire bans. So we didn't meet the criteria about 3 weeks ago. We collectively said, well, let's hold it for about 3 more weeks, just in case we don't get the moisture that we're currently having. Luckily, we're getting the moisture. We had a couple of dry days here, then we get some more moisture. So we had a shift, we had a little bit of drop of the drought. So we came out of fire restrictions essentially today. Us and the National Forest, all of us collectively. So Gilpin County, Jefferson County, Larimer County, Boulder County, we all came out, we all go in together, we all come out together. And the reason we started doing that is because it was confusing. We were in fire ban, but you go in Gilpin County and they're not. Or we're in fire ban, and we say you can't have a campfire at your house, but you go to Gilpin County, you could. So we tried to clean that up in the last 2 years, and then we all go in and out together.
Can you explain what unincorporated Clear Creek County is?
Anywhere outside of a municipal boundary, so outside of the city limits of Iowa Springs, city limits of Georgetown, city limits of Empire, Silver Plume. Everywhere else in the county is all unincorporated, so this is not under a city or town government.
So Idaho Springs in particular is not necessarily under fire ban, even though the county is.
So in Idaho Springs, fire ban goes in place at the county level. Sheriff signed it, under the municipal code for Idaho Springs is the chief of police. Same way for Empire, and I think Georgetown is similar.
We made it so that it was
Right.
automatic.
You guys made it automatic. So then it goes under the authority of the lead law enforcement official for the town. And we've never had a situation that in my history doing it that we had a chief of police going, I don't care what you do, we're having a free for all. We've been close, we just haven't quite got there yet. So we all collectively talk, and everybody goes in and out together. And it's been probably as smooth as I've seen it in the last 4 or 5 years.
So if there's a county fire ban, it's obviously not.
Yep, it runs everywhere.
This is terribly idealistic, but the huge companies, the insurance companies, they don't want to fire. Have they contacted at all in terms of helping with mitigation?
They can.
No, but you know what insurance companies do some really cool things. They hire third-party evaluators, come out, take 80 pictures of your home that may or may not be an accurate depiction of the risk. And they fill out these long forms that may or may not be accurate. Most of the time they're not, at least the ones we've done the last year. I just got another one today. And they say, we're gonna cancel your insurance because, for example, Allstate says if you have a 39% slope adjacent to your home, you have to be mitigated for 1,000 feet. Okay? But if I only own 74 feet below my house before it's my neighbor's property, where do I get the other 925? And we're fighting those. So that's what we're seeing. They're not putting any money into the pot. There are some grants that are currently going on that are funded by insurance fees to the state. That we're looking at for our agency for next year to expand some programs. They put a little bit in there, but that's gonna, make it sunset here in like 3 years, I think. So they cause a lot of grief and they cause a lot of stress in your lives. And they expect you to figure out how to do it. So what we started doing in the last, 3 years, Dan, we've done this. We spent a lot of time looking at those evaluations and taking competing pictures, as I call them. And then arguing with the underwriters to get insurance. We've been very successful up to now, but eventually we're not going to be, I'm pretty sure. But I said, I just did another one today, in Saddleback. And the reports are amazing. I want to be a third-party evaluator. They make a lot of money and they don't, there's no bar to set. Like, are you breathing? Did you drive there? Did you take 4 pictures? Here's your check. It's up to the property owner to fight it. It's unfortunate. So we're doing a lot of those.
That was one thing I had to bring up.
Yeah.
We had our insurance canceled last year. We got a notice and they said they were gonna cancel our insurance. So, we asked why. Fire danger.
Yep.
That was it. So we had a hydrant right across the street from us. We live in town.
Yeah.
We're at Fulton, Virginia, by the
Yeah,
way.
you got
Yeah, we've been there.
you've got no risk.
Yeah, they said we had a risk, and so we tried to get insurance with our next door neighbors. The same insurance that they had. And, they said, no, they wouldn't take us. So we called, how many did you call? Like 4 different companies to get insurance on our home.
We're seeing that across the board.
And I'm concerned we're not going, they could, we just paid for next year,
Mhm.
but that could all, go up and we have insurance.
That's where we talk about home hardening. That's where it's really important that we clear out that 0 to 5 door house, we put screens over all any kind of vents, attic vents and stuff. And if all that stuff's in place, this is what's nice for us, and the insurance company says, nope, we're gonna deny you, here's the report, we can take that report and go out and go, I don't know why you denied them, because there's the screens, there's the gutters, there's the right roof, there's nothing next to their house, we take the pictures and win. And that's what we've had to do. We did Joanne Sorensen, I use her as an example. You couldn't burn her house down if you tried, it's all gravel and it's amazing. We had to go fight the insurance company there too, for the same reason. Because that's what these, when the reports are bad, and then they're also taking a box, like 80452 is the box. So project support lost their insurance, the senior center, 14th and Minor.
There's no trees.
There's no trees. You can kick the hydrant if you don't pay attention walking up the sidewalk. They lost the insurance. So they had to get liability insurance, and then they're now currently on the state last chance insurance, commercial insurance. Luckily, that's a perfect example of there's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing, and we're not even sure what's next. Please do.
The insurance industry in Colorado is largely trying to move out. It has as much to do with hail as it does with wildfire.
We were like number one, I think, or number 1 or 2 in hail, I think.
Weather is acting differently these days. I think it was, Jeremy said that he wasn't quite sure why. I've got a guess, but we don't have to talk about climate change here. But the insurance industry is kind of largely trying to move out of Colorado. And so they're canceling policies and they're not underwriting new policies. And it's a statewide problem with a statewide solution. Last year, there was a bill that narrowly failed that would have put a small fee on insurance plans to help support that industry and back up that industry and help homeowners harden their roofs and harden their properties. There have been bills requiring insurance companies to be more transparent with their modeling, et cetera. This is another statewide issue where if you're into talking to your legislator, our legislators are with us, but making sure they stay with us is important, right? Because these industries also talk to legislators.
This kind of goes back to your question about funding, because when I talk to people in my own personal situation, it's what do we do in the next year where you can harden your house or, you know, mitigate some of it. And I think from a city standpoint, because I also hear the concerns about we don't want to raise any more taxes. We have the highest, you know, tax in the county right now.
We're number 1.
Yeah, we're number 1. But we're looking at what happens with our East End parking. And we have talked about with the East End parking, using some of those funds for maintaining the mountain park. But I think also we need to look at, just from the city's standpoint, using some of those funds for fire mitigation. Like, how do we help our residents? You know, how do we provide grants for our residents? How do we help them in the next year do mitigation?
So real quick thoughts, those that live in the city limits. Would you support or not support something similar to that? Because we will get East End parking, paid parking on the East End, which captures the mountain bikers.
And the
I think
visitors,
it's good.
people who are visiting, and increasing a lot of the risks in our community.
But our question is, where, you know, the parking in downtown goes into the enterprise fund, it's for improvements in downtown, downtown parking structure
Only.
only. That doesn't exist on parking on that end, that's a new opportunity. So the question I think is, would you support taking the funds from parking enforcement and reinvesting in mitigation, grant programs, yes, maintaining the mountain bike park is part of that, because we want that to be maintained if that is directly paying for the parking that's funding our mitigation. So it all connects. But we're just curious if that's a yay, nay, or are you crazy with this group? We've been talking collectively, like, what do we do with it? How do we reinvest that revenue directly into town in a positive way that yields results? And we think we can all, to us, mitigating risk is one thing we really need to focus on. And we're just trying to be really creative on how we fund that. And I would love to see that funded by visitors, because I think everybody knows, if you live in town or even in the county and you register your vehicle, you can park in town for free. And if you don't know that, please do so. It's important. We don't want you paying parking, but we do want the visitors paying parking. And we want to harness that revenue stream and reinvest that in a positive way. So that's one of the discussions we're trying to figure out at the council level. Like, how do we reinvest that and get positive change within the community? Whether it's a grant program that helps, we talk about, helps offset the cost of cutting trees, helps offset the cost of hardening a home. Like, most of the cost for hardening a home, we figure is like $250 to harden most homes. That's what we're talking about. How do we offset that cost to the resident? So we're looking at ideas, and we definitely want input from everybody on how that looks and how we should take those revenues and do good things with them. They're not designed just to pay for widgets and other stuff. They should be reinvested, or in my opinion only, that should be reinvested in the community in a positive way. I think we can all agree. I think we're all in agreement on council. That's what we want to do. We're just not sure what it looks like. We're barely into that conversation.
Well, this would be, if there was a catastrophe and there was a huge fire, I know a lot of people have talked that are concerned about how you get out of this town.
We are too. So Chief Busick did a really amazing project a year and a half ago, and he did some evacuation mapping. And a lot of that was leaving town via 103, for example. What does that look like? Because we can't go down the highway. We had some conversations with CDOT that initially weren't as much fun as they wanted with their emergency management group. We said, okay, if we're evacuating large areas of Berkeley County, sorry about I-70, it's unfortunate, but you can shut down Morrison, and we might run traffic all the lanes until we put it in the county. We were very frank about that conversation. And at the end of the conversation, they went, okay, that makes sense. Because our other argument was shut down I-70, for example, to get people out is, if we're bringing in resources from outside of the county, which we're gonna have to from a fire resource perspective, we can't do that with an open highway. So we need to shut it down, effectively evacuate large numbers of people in a safe way, visitors especially. Because how many visitors who've never driven 103 do we want to say it's fine? I think Dave can attest to how much fun that is about midwinter when you're pulling them out. You did that for 30 years. So that's the conversations we're having. Chief Busick has some maps, which also includes how do you bring people like over Virginia Canyon, what's that look like? But a lot of these routes also require, we need to do some roadside mitigation on all these routes to make them really, really safe. So now we're all the way back into how we pay for it. So all of this stuff interconnects, and it's all in process, but it's how do we get grants? How do we have grant match? How do we get federal and state partners to help fund these things? And how can we show these organizations that we're ready to do the work and we support the work? That's where we're starting this process. That's where this is my big push. George has been pushing this all the time. He's been in, we've had conversations like, how do we push this? How do we get it over the finish line?
Jody too.
And now Jody went, oh, they both did. We should join this too. We should have briefed them before they said, yes, it's a good idea, but I want to join the call. We'll figure out how we do this. So we're all trying to figure out, and this isn't a political thing. It doesn't matter party here. I don't care. This is where we live here. How are we willing to work together to get the problem solved and have a safe community? Because the whole point of everything we're doing is we want to have a fire event in our community where we're standing on the porch with a cup of coffee going, wow, that was different. But our houses are okay and our families are okay and we haven't lost anything. That's the end goal. We hardened our homes. The Marshall fire was tragic, but that was structure to structure ignition, completely caused by people that were there to build homes for money. Those houses are too close, the sheds are too close, the fences all touch the house, and then they're shocked. I don't know how it burned to the whole neighborhood in 100-mile winds. Let's back up about 25 minutes and we can probably cycle through that. We can prevent that in our community if we do some stuff. But I think we've had great efforts over the last couple of years with private landowners.
So I'm assuming that you want to carry these conversations throughout
I do.
county, and do you have dates set up for
No,
more of these?
we
or-
sat down in his office and Andy gave us some time about his busy day to go to listen to us rant about this as a possibility. yeah, my goal is to do this in every community in the county. And have this conversation, this right to the point, frank conversation about what do we want to do? It's gonna take everybody here working together. It's gonna take, I'm the chair of the Crooked Creek Watershed Forest Health Partnership too, so that's the other organization that George participates in. That's the 450,000 people that get water out of our county. I've been involved with that organization since its inception. So I'm arguing there too for the same thing, how we get funding from down the hill that pays for mitigation up here. Those conversations are occurring. They just occurred you talked in the last meeting. And we've had side conversations for about a year and a half of what that looks like with even downstream water users, water providers. So I want to continue this. Does that seem like a reasonable idea to continue this?
Yes.
We're making progress.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to get dates and keep having this conversation. Max wants to do the same thing when he's on. And come talk to people in the community and have this conversation and so, yeah, we have an issue. We know we have an issue. How we fix it?
But you're still working on the scheduling of all that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the CWPP through the municipal boundaries, rest of them first. Andy was great to give me a date here, so I got it done right away so we can schedule this right after it.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to go everywhere and have this exact conversation, including the unincorporated part. Probably have one in Dumont, the same way, and talk to people. Because I've talked to HOAs and stuff like that. I go to more HOA meetings than I've ever gone in my life. I should start buying property in some of these places, so I have a reason to be there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a
I live in
lot
York
of,
Gulch, by the way. I made every HOA meeting for the last 5 years. They're mitigating it rate. If you haven't driven it, go drive it.
Oh, I have.
Okay, it's amazing.
A lot still.
I know you do. It's amazing. Perfect example of that. So,
but you've got a lot of areas designated on your map. And I know you've hit some of them already really heavily.
and the goal is to go through the CWPP with each little polygon and have this exact conversation
Exactly.
relating to this is your neighborhood and this is what we think is a risk.
Yeah.
And how you want to fix it.
You said something earlier about CDOT, and I know Tucker EMS, we give CDOT a lot. Do they give back to our community a whole lot? Would that be an option?
No.
I mean, we could hit them up for.
Again, I think there's a lot of restrictions on what they can and can't do with their money. They do have a masticator. They've got the machine and they've got the ability to cut the trees. So they got the machinery, that's all bought. It was delayed due to production issues for about 24 months. Now they need the staff. And again, that's the other issue. We run about 38,000 cars through I-70 here now. Used to be about 33,000. I don't know what it was when this was all Dave's entire realm and he lived out there 24/7, but it keeps increasing. It's down a little bit because of Floyd Hill. I'm good with Floyd Hill reducing daily traffic. I'm good with it. But we're peaking at 42,000 cars out here now. And with that, when we talk to the CDOT supervisors now, we're fixing guardrail and cable rail all the time. So that's taking resources from away from what they want to be doing for us for mitigation and taking care of some of the trees.
As I'm saying, our county dollars are going to all these wrecks that are along I-70 corridor.
To a certain degree, it's about 38% of the call load is actually on the interstate. It's kind of, well, let me rephrase that. Interstate 70, US 6, US 40, all of them combined is about 38% of the call load total. But it feels like 100% of the call load because we have a simple fender bender and we spend 2 hours going, I really wish I could go to Safeway, but I can't get out of my house. For those live here or anywhere adjacent to it, right? Or if you live on Littleberry, like, I would like to go somewhere, but I can't even pull out of my driveway, right? Because now they're diverting. So we see the impacts from the accidents more than the actual impact of the agency. When we look at the data, but it is a big deal. Yeah.
Just a little bit about the state's budget. By the end of next legislative session, they will have cut maybe $2.5 billion out of their budget over the last 2 years or so. So they're right in the midst of cutting about $2.5 billion out of their budget. You'll see things on your ballot, one way or another, to help fill that hole. And whether or not CDOT has money matters here, for sure. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal to us. So we're trying to be collaborative with them. They come to our operations meeting every month with all the law enforcement agencies, Russ and Gilpin. And we have really open, uncomfortable conversations about what can we do and what can we not do and what's your staffing levels. And trying to find solutions to this. And I possibly have cut a couple hundred CDOT trees, we just won't tell them until they disappear, but we're doing some of that too. There's some hazard trees that we can get rid of, we told them, hey, your trees disappear, but don't ask questions. Right? You can't get to it, we got to it, we're just gonna call it a win, so.
I don't have a good solution. I'm not trying to offer that.
Yeah.
It's more of a question. So Timberline has a paid fire mitigation program.
We do too.
Okay, so because I work in Gilpin, but I live here. So I was literally about to submit the request for Timberline to come to my house because I couldn't find information about your paid on anywhere.
We do project, where do you live?
Fremont.
Okay, we're at.
The property on Wildlife up on the bridge.
Yeah, okay, and then we're at. Makes sense. You just had a conversation about this. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So what we've done, yeah, we don't advertise it, I'll tell you why. One of the issues with having a paid mitigation crew that directly doesn't work for property owners. And we're just lower agencies, just listening, we work everyone and figure it out. Is you become a contracting company. Which is good, because you're getting work done and you're covering your costs through property owners paying for the work. Pretty awesome way to fund it. But that's kind of where it ends. So our program, they're all wildland firefighters. So we pull them. They're all red carded, they're all deployable. We deploy them on a regular basis too, to get skill levels done. And when you become a contractor per se, and this is what Boulder rule figured out is homeowners get really upset when they're like, your crew was supposed to be at my house on Wednesday morning and they weren't there. Well, you're right, the crew was out actually suppressing a fire down the road. I don't care. I made plans for them to be at my house on Wednesday morning to get work on, why weren't they there? So we took a different path. So what we do is, and we've done it all throughout the county, if you make mitigation piles and you can put them adjacent to the road, we chip them for free. And if you can't, well, versus us cutting trees,
Anywhere in the county?
anywhere within our district,
I don't know if you like.
anywhere within the 346 square miles of fund that we call our district. We're doing 4 houses on Saddleback next week. We just did Mill Creek Park for the second or third time for the season. We just chipped York Gulch last week, and we're chipping them again this week. So what we did is, what we figured out as an agency is if we heavily support property owners helping each other to get mitigation work done, with us coming in and doing occasionally doing some of the high risk trees like we did in York Gulch. We did about 10 trees adjacent to the road that were all high risk. But if we support it and we do the chipping, this is the first year we did that, we've almost tripled the amount of acres treated by supporting at that level. We do have chippers that we used to put out in the community. We had one that spent 2 seasons in York Gulch, that's where it lived. Going house to house, it was a smaller chipper, but they only chipped about a quarter of what we've chipped this year with the big chipper by changing the program. So we shifted over to that. When we're not working on those projects right now, we're in Iowa Springs this year. We've been in Silver Plume. I don't know how many trees we've taken out of the Dumont Cemetery in the last 4 years. Those know Mr. Locknicker. Joe calls, goes, I got trees ready to process. You'll have a crew in the morning. We've been doing that for 3 years. Because the beetles and everything came through those trees and killed them. So we took a different path. We do a lot of support. We do a lot of walking properties, taking pictures, talking about trees, marking trees. And that's been more productive with a small crew because we put $120,000 into our program. We've got a crew of three firefighters that do the program and then the equipment that goes with it.
But we can hire you, is that what you're saying?
You don't hire us.
I will pay you to get rid of my dead trees. I have a
We
lot.
can talk about solutions. We haven't done a lot of that. We do chipping for free. That's the biggest thing we've done is we chip hundreds and hundreds of cubic yards of material throughout the community. And that's been our biggest ability to get things done. I wish I had a better solution for it.
No, I mean, it's,
We don't have enough capacity. And Evergreen is very similar to that. They've got a much larger, it's a $1 million program. And they're not there either. They do chipping and they're working on roadside mitigation because that's the focus. And we kind of know a lot more of that too.
Are you allowed to take donations?
Yeah, we take donations. We take just about everything and that's why we're down. That's why we're on the ballot. I'm gonna say it. We're on the ballot because we're looking for additional funds to support this program because George is on our board of directors and he supported me 3 years ago. I'm going, hey, I think we need a mitigation crew, but we have to spend reserve funds to do it. And instead of why are you coming to here with this? He went, well, that makes sense. We'll see how it works. So they let FEMA to Grace to spend reserve funds to try something, and we're 4 years into it now. It works, but it could be 12 people deep and it's only 3. So it's definitely a limitation.
So I've been out of the county building department for 4 years now, but the site development department handles the defensible space permitting. And I would think that they would maybe have even a small list of people that they could refer you to, possibly.
yeah, it's not, for me personally, I'm not speaking for everybody, I don't think, but for me personally, it's not access people. But I'm saying, if we can if there was an obvious paid program that could support more.
But the end goal is we would love to have a larger program to support for mitigation at that level. Whereas currently, due to our budget, we've been spending reserve funds to reduce the risk, and I totally appreciate the support to do that. But we're reaching the point now that even that's done. We're to the point now that we don't find a funding solution with the mill increase. We're gonna have some really interesting conversations about what we no longer do in the community, and I don't want to have those conversations.
And just to be clear, we're talking about a ballot in the unincorporated area, which might ask you why only the unincorporated area.
Yep.
Idaho Springs and municipalities are paying into the fire authority at 9 mills. That's like the property tax rate worth of funding. The unincorporated area is only paying at 4.5. The cities are able to just pay out of their general funds, so the county has to go ask voters in the unincorporated area. And so that's what that ballot measure is about. And that ballot measure is one step of many steps to shore up the funding of the public systems around here and you know, do wildfire mitigation among a lot of other things that you all really care about.
Well said. Yes.
I love the question about donations. I would really encourage you guys to get the QR code and bring it to all of you.
We're talking about a QR code for that, and we've also talked about a QR code for even the mountain bike park for the same reasons to support like Alpine Rescue and some of the costs.
Because I just took $200,000 and divided it by the number of households in this county, and it's $45 a year.
Yep, and math is real, we can all agree
The
to that.
math is real. Well, I mean, but I donate 3 times that to the local fire organization at another property I have in another state.
And that's why we wanted to have this
Forest area.
conversation.
But I've never been asked to.
Right, and we've been kind of working towards where we are today. Some of that build a program, does it work? What are the stumbling blocks? How do we fix those? And so we're at that level. And you gotta remember at the same time, on top of mitigation, we've been adding, those that were been here for a long time, all fire protection in Cricket County used to be all volunteer. Right? B was part of that whole, I don't like to sleep. I'd love to go to a structure fire. Let's go down the road. All right. And both of her kids were heavily involved in that, even though they were career with other agencies. So on top of doing the MIT program, at the same time, we've been adding career firefighters to improve response times. Shorten the time from the time you call 911 to the time they're in your driveway. And it cuts it in about half. So that's been going on at the same time. So we've been kind of figuring out, like, I hate to say it, but what do we want to be when we grow up? What does the fire authority want to be when it grows up? Because our calls for service for us EMS are through the roof compared to what they used to be. They go up every year. So how do we handle that? How do we handle things like we're talking about tonight, the wonderful insects that kill trees faster than we can cut them? How do we support the community with firewood and the needs of the lower income edge of our community, which is fast growing because we're an aging community. So as people retire and they no longer have the same income levels and costs go up, now heating their homes is a big deal. How do we support that? So the firewood program directly supports those homes that have been growing.
So maybe the community could have, the old pancake breakfast fundraiser and bring in
It's okay,
cash.
we'll be okay.
Um,
We'll be honest, work more of those than any, and sort of Don. You work really, really hard and you get about $2,000 after you pay for all the materials and all. It's like, these are great.
but we could ask, like she figured out per person, for.
So I think, yeah, I think there's funding mechanisms. I think a QR code, we've been talking about that, all that stuff. Embracing the technology, because that's really where we need to be. I mean, we all write checks, right? Like, this is me.
Yeah.
So we joke about that, but some like to do that. I think it's fair. But trying to figure out how we creatively fund what we do, how we increase our ability to mitigate, how we cover the impacts from recreation, all of this stuff is the conversation. So we kind of put mitigation, reducing wildfire risk as our number one. And that's what we're focusing on at the same time in the background, on how we expand all of the programs. I'll do a pitch while I'm up here. The ballot initiative that you're gonna see is also for EMS. We really want a third ambulance, 24/7. That's a big deal. That also shortens response times, and that's the whole point is. You call 911, we want to be there twice as fast. Both agencies. So that's why we're asking. At the same time, we're looking for creative ways to fund, we're looking for grant opportunities. Willing to beg for money. Mick is very good at it. They come back with cash donations all the time. Like, did you mug somebody? Nope, we got chased down and this is what they gave us. Cool. And that all goes right back into the program. Every dollar goes back into mitigation. So we just thank you for your engagement. Thank you for ideas and
Jeremy, can I have something?
please add something. You're sitting on the fly all night.
So, right, so I'm clerk with the Office of Emergency Management. I've been here now 1 year, came from the big city of Denver, so it's way more my style. I live in Evergreen, about a quarter mile from the Clear Creek Jeffco border, so I totally umber force. I'm gonna die in a wildfire.
Hey, you have one way out. I want to hear.
Woo, one way out. Not survivable. Long story short, just want to remind you all, right, like the grant landscape, we say just get a grant. It's much more complex now. And so just making sure we're all under the same understanding that there have historically been lots of grants specifically around wildfire mitigation. I know the county used to facilitate one of those grants due to budget cuts, due to federal changes across the board, across state changes. Many of those have gone away. So I guess my ask to you all is, our moving one step greater than wildfire mitigation, there's the county hazard mitigation plan, which addresses many more of our hazards, right? So wildfire is a big one, but you've got winter weather, you have drought, you have hail, you have lightning, you have flooding. I mean, think of all of the hazards that affect you in your local area in addition to wildfire. And that plan is a requirement to be eligible for any kind of mitigation grant, which includes wildfire mitigation. That is up in 2027. And the grant that we've historically always gone through as emergency management is our BRIC grant. So building resilient infrastructure in communities, I think is what we stand for. That has been eliminated by the federal government, which totally don't care about politics. We've had to adjust and pivot to try to find more unique or smaller grants to adjust to make sure we can update that plan. The county has officially submitted a grant application. Now we've been able to hire a grant administrator for the county, which has been great. And we submitted it this last month, and hopefully we'll find out in middle of October, maybe end of October, if we've been awarded the money to update our hazard mitigation plan. So again, we have till 2027, but I guess to my ask of all of you, every municipality is asked to be part of the hazard mitigation plan update. I know Idaho Springs submitted a letter, I don't know, like 6 or 8 months ago before lots of things changed. But there's lots of community asks and buy-in when we actually get into the nitty-gritty of updating how we address hazards across the board outside of just wildfire. And so my ask to all of you tonight would be, when you see that information come out, fingers crossed that we get the grant, in the next, 12 to 18 months, please come speak, please be a part of the process. We hit up every municipality, we hit up the county as a whole. We want your input. That's how we get the best product. And it's really all for you all at the end of the day and me. So that's, I guess, my one ask, and not money, but the buy-in and support, and just don't be dismissive when you see it. We're really looking to be creative on how to make sure that we have plans that are right, and then how we implement them. And as Jeremy alluded to, right, funding's a big deal, but the plan is kind of a solid foundation. So more to come, and we'll make sure to let it know if we get it or not, but fingers crossed at all. Fingers crossed for us. Anyways, thank you. Sorry.
Any other questions before we kept you 15 minutes longer than I thought? Yeah.
Do you need help with connecting with the different districts in the plan?
Oh, I think we need help, always need help connecting. Yes. I'll give anybody who wants my card, my contact information. I'm always looking for help. I'm always looking for ideas. I don't want to do all the stuff in like a vacuum. It totally defeats the purpose. Yeah.
So I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but I applied for the advisory board position for Dumont. The fire authority, isn't that
Sweet.
That's all that's.
cool? Anything? We have discussed that, yeah. We were waiting to get X amount of applications in, and then we've had some turnover at the county level that kind of halted it, and we're gathering that information, but that's moving forward. Because I feel
Thank
like,
you.
I feel like there's people want to participate.
Mhm.
And I am trying, and my husband submitted an application for a volunteer firefighter, but never heard anything as far as I
You
know.
will. We're processing
Okay.
those. I cut those from 40 to 30 with Captain Noel. Yesterday we did that. Yeah. So he'll be reaching out. We intentionally held on volunteers for the year to test a couple theories. The theory is, is it all about having 100 people on your roster, or is it about having the right people on your roster? And what we figured out is it's the right people on your roster filling the roles. So we completed that little experiment, and the data shows that we're doing the right things. So now the next thing is to bring on a single group of new volunteers, do it once a year, and then train them for the year, then do that each year. And that's what we've been kind of working towards. Well, you'll hear from Mr. Noel if you're still interested. I hope you are. We just want to make sure that when we bring new people into the organization, we have all our ducks in a row with the program and the changes that we've been making over the last year operationally. Just to make sure that when we bring them in, they're well supported, and you succeed, and you enjoy being there versus we want you to be miserable. We should actually have fun. So we've been changing some things over the last month.
Can I ask one
Of course.
quick? Okay. We have the sirens all the time. We look close, we hear them all the time. Who absorbs? We have the police department and the ambulance services there on the highway. Who absorbs that cost?
The cost, each individual agency.
Each individual.
So for example, if we're on the highway, if my agency's on the highway, we absorb that cost. There's a little bit of billing, but we'll get into that in a second. EMS, if they don't transport the patient, it's 100% on them. And law enforcement is every call for service is absorbed by their operational budget. So yeah, it does hit our agencies. It used to be a little different on billing because we can bill for like extrications. And for those that are in there older than 30 and remembers cars before airbags, we used to extricate a lot. Dave can attest to it because he used to be the guy who went, I'll get you the vest and stuff you need, I'll be right back with my truck for years. So we used to extricate all the time. We used to do a lot of things on a pretty frequent basis that's billable. We don't do that anymore. 90% of our motor vehicle accidents are minor injury, if no injury, and it's a traffic snarl. We're providing traffic support to get the highway open as fast as we can. So we've kind of lost our ability to a great extent to effectively bill because we don't have the billable incidents occurring anymore. But we are actively looking at that as an agency right now. What can we bill under current statute and what that fee structure looks like? I mean, I've got a stack on my desk, it's huge, it's different thing, I'm working through that. And so that's the thing, in EMS, not to speak for them, but to a certain degree, if they transport, it almost costs them more money to transport sometimes than it does just to go out there and do a refusal and not transport a patient.
That's the patient refusing.
Oh.
If the patient says, I'm good, I don't need to go to the hospital, there's no reason to get transported to the hospital. A lot of ways, that's actually cheaper for EMS because they just have staff time for 20 minutes. The cost goes up with recovery. Also, again, that's why it's on the ballot. We're asking for money. Some of the mills, the 2.4 mills go to EMS. This is exactly why. They recover about 30% of their billable time on patients that get transported.
And those are what the insurance is willing to pay too.
Yep.
It's not even like.
It's what the insurance is willing to pay. So their costs are up here. The insurance pays about 30% of those costs and they absorb those costs. So this is why it gets really expensive in a small community with a very small tax base to provide very high level professional emergency services. And I think every agency's gotten very ingenious over the years on how we provide a high level of service. At like pennies if we can do it. So that's, he's got more to add to this, but.
Yeah, I mean, we asked, the question you're asking is which services are going where and who's paying, right?
Right.
And when you look at where the increases in call volumes have gone, and this is EMS data, the call volumes have gone up a lot. They've gone up as much, the local calls have gone up as much proportional to the I-70 calls. And that's about our community aging and calling more often and having more complicated calls. And our EMS team is awesome. They're awesome. They have a cardiac arrest save rate of 24%. The national average is 7%. They are awesome. They carry whole blood. They've got specialized equipment to get people into their bus. And they, you know, it's to get this third ambulance, will mean that right now, 1 out of every 3 days, Gilpin County's ambulance is on standby in case there's a call in Quick. To get this third ambulance, and they charge an extra $1,000, and they don't have the whole blood, and they don't have the cardiac save rate that we do. And so to get this third ambulance means that Gilpin is not on standby once every 3 days. It's your people calling. And for me, like, I don't think about myself, right? I think about my mom, and I want her to have our guys show up and show up fast. And I'm looking at Kelly on the camera, Kelly Beatty, and Kelly, you know, in a volunteer system for decades, kept the worst things happening in Clear Creek County, right? With respect to fire. And we've hired a lot of professional staff since then. And we've seen response rates increase, and that's a good thing. It costs more money, and it's at the end of the day, no matter who's calling, we want someone to show up when we call. We're not paying for it.
And they've not asked for a mill increase since 1988.
Yeah, you know,
So.
it seems like a good idea in November of '88 to go, hey, we like only this.
Yeah.
But Henderson's been the game changer, probably, for this community. Are we probably 5 years behind asking? Oh, yeah, I think we totally are, but that doesn't matter at this point. And we're definitely asking, we're not asking for give us enough money to fix our budget deficit. Either agency, we're asking for enough money to maintain the services as we have now, and for us, it would be expand by one year-round mitigation planner, and EMS is to expand with, basically it's one additional person to fill that third ambulance spot on top of what they already have for staff. So does it fix our problem for either agency? No. We acknowledge that, but we also, I think collectively, we've talked, Kelly and I've talked extensively. We didn't want to come to you guys as voters and go, what do you mean you only give us 18%? Like, yeah, I'm not gonna come in. Can you give us $600 more? That's not fair either. So we're trying to find that blend. We need an increase, which is about $300,000 for having in her home. Or so.
$208 for half of
It's 208. What we're asking for, and then it gives us time to work towards exactly what we talked about with, is there a fee structure for rafting? Is there a fee? All of that stuff can be worked out in the next 5 to 6 years, and then that becomes part of the long-term solution. The burden isn't all back on the individual homeowner.
Your conversation just triggered this. So we can't tax the recreation, but people aren't gonna come here to recreate if it's all burnt. So can we talk to the recreation companies about putting a $5, whatever, I don't know what the dollar amount is, but adding a fee on their own and donating it if we can take
I
donations?
think that's the ideas we're asking for.
Okay. If
Stuff like
I had
that.
a recreation company, I would jump all over it. I don't, unfortunately.
I agree.
I know, I should do that. That would be smart.
So yeah, that's what we're asking. That's what we're doing these. We want ideas, and I don't think any ideas, there's no ideas like, oh, it's ridiculous. Put them all on the table and we figure out, we try what works and what doesn't work. We have to. We're too small of a community. That with the funding needs we have to not be really creative moving forward.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you guys. Thanks for all your time. Well, we went over too.